This one clip didn't feel like a tease, it didn't feel like a setup. It felt like a goodbye. The silence was heavy. The look on Tommy's face said more than words ever could. And for the first time in the entire Power universe, fans started asking the same scary question at the same time. Is this really the end of Tommy? The moment this clip starts, the energy feels wrong in a way that is hard to explain but impossible to ignore. This is not the usual fast-talking, gun-pulling, explosive Tommy we are used to seeing in Power Book. For Force, the camera doesn't rush, the background noise fades, even the space around him feels empty, like the world has already moved on and left him behind. This is important, because Power never wastes silence. When a scene slows down like this, it usually means something permanent is coming. Tommy stands there, not angry, not shouting, not reacting. He's thinking, and that alone should scare fans more than any gunshot ever could. The way the clip is framed makes it feel final, almost like the show wants us to sit with him one last time before something changes forever. There's no big music cue, no dramatic speech, just a long pause that forces the audience to lean in. This is the kind of scene Power uses when a chapter closes, not when a new one opens. What makes this clip even more dangerous is how it connects to Tommy's full journey from the very beginning. Tommy Egan has survived on chaos. He runs toward danger, not away from it. But in this moment, he looks tired in a way we've never seen before. Not hurt, not scared, just worn down. Season 3 has slowly stripped Tommy of everything that once drove him. Trust is gone, loyalty is broken. Every move he makes comes with a cost. And the clip makes it feel like he finally understands that the game will never stop asking for more. His eyes tell a story of someone who knows there's no clean way out. That's why this moment hits harder than past near-death scenes before. Tommy survived because he wanted to keep fighting. Here, the clip makes it feel like he's questioning whether the fight is even worth it anymore. If you look closely, the clip hides small details that make the end of Tommy theory even stronger. The lighting is colder than usual, giving the scene a lifeless tone. The camera stays just far enough away to create distance, like we are already being pushed out of his world. Even the way Tommy stands feels different. There's no tension in his shoulders, no readiness to strike. Power often uses these quiet signals to warn viewers that something big is coming. And this clip is full of them. There's also no clear threat in front of him, which is strange for a show built on enemies. That absence matters. It suggests that the danger isn't a person standing across from him, but the life he's been living. When Power wants to kill a character, it shows danger. When it wants to end a story, it shows reflection. This clip is full of reflection. By the time the clip ends, the question is no longer what just happened, but what happens next if Tommy is really done. The scene doesn't give us answers. And that's what makes it powerful. It feels like the calm before a final storm, or worse, the calm after everything has already burned. Power has trained its audience to expect twists, but this clip doesn't tease a twist, it teases closure. Whether Tommy dies, disappears, or walks away, this moment feels like a line being drawn. The show wants us to feel uncomfortable, uncertain, and afraid to imagine Force without him. And that fear is exactly why this clip matters, because if Power is brave enough to end Tommy's story here, nothing in Season 3 is safe anymore. What truly makes this moment feel different is how it lines up with the version of Tommy Egan we are seeing in Season 3. This is not the reckless man who ran through New York burning bridges without looking back. This is a Tommy who has already lost too much and knows exactly how the story usually ends for people like him. Every move he makes now feels slower, heavier, and more thoughtful. Like someone who understands that survival is no longer the same thing as winning. The clip quietly shows a man who has reached the point where instinct is no longer enough. He has been betrayed, hunted, and forced to kill people he once trusted. And Season 3 keeps reminding us that Chicago is not forgiving him for his past. The streets don't fear him the way they once did, and that loss of control is something Tommy has never handled well. Throughout this season of Power Book 4, Force, Tommy has been pushed into corners he can't shoot his way out of. Allies have become liabilities, and enemies keep multiplying faster than he can eliminate them. The clip reflects that pressure perfectly. There is no anger in his face, only awareness. It's the look of someone who finally understands that every path forward leads to the same ending. Power has always shown that when a character stops reacting and starts accepting, their time is almost up. Tommy's silence in this moment speaks louder than any threat he's ever made. It suggests that he knows something we don't, and that knowledge feels final. That another reason this scene feels like a real ending is how it mirrors the emotional weight of Tommy's entire arc. He has always been defined by loyalty, even when that loyalty destroyed him. But Season 3 slowly breaks that belief apart. Every decision he makes costs someone else their life, and every victory feels empty. The clip captures a man who is no longer chasing power or control, but clarity. That shift is dangerous in the Power universe because clarity often comes right before sacrifice. When characters stop fighting for dominance and start thinking about consequences, the show usually prepares them for an exit. Tommy doesn't look like someone planning his next move. He looks like someone measuring how much damage he's already done. There is also something unsettling about how alone he feels in this moment. No backup, no crew, no one standing behind him. Power rarely shows Tommy isolated unless it wants the audience to feel that he has reached the end of the road. Isolation has always been a warning sign in this universe. Characters lose their circle before they lose their lives. This clip follows that pattern closely, even if Tommy survives. Physically, the emotional setup makes it clear that the man we knew is already gone. What remains is someone who understands that walking away might be the only way to stop the cycle. The most chilling part is that the clip doesn't try to convince us of anything. It simply lets the moment exist. There's no fake tension, no obvious misdirection. That confidence suggests the writers want the audience to sit with the idea that Tommy's story may truly be reaching its final chapter. Whether that ending is death, disappearance, or surrender, this scene makes one thing clear. Tommy is no longer fighting to rule Chicago. He's fighting to decide how his story ends. The most dangerous thing about this clip is not what is said, but what is quietly placed in front of us. Power has always trusted visuals more than dialogue, and this moment is packed with signals that feel intentional. The lighting is stripped down and cold, washing the scene of warmth. This matters because warmth in Power Book 4, Force usually represents control or confidence. Here, that warmth is gone. The shadows linger longer than usual, almost swallowing the frame, making it feel like Tommy is already fading out of the world he built. Even the background feels empty, like the city itself has turned its back on him. Power never makes environments feel random. When a space feels hollow, it usually reflects the character's future, not just their present. Camera placement also plays a huge role in how this scene communicates danger. Instead of moving with Tommy or circling him like a predator, the camera keeps its distance. That distance creates separation, as if the audience is no longer meant to be inside his head. For a character who has always pulled viewers into his chaos, this shift is unsettling. It suggests detachment, like the story is preparing to let him go. Power often changes how it frames characters right before a major turning point. Close shots mean survival. Distance often means goodbye. This clip leans heavily toward distance. There are also subtle visual echoes from earlier moments in Tommy's journey. His posture mirrors scenes where other major Power characters face their final decisions. Shoulders relaxed, head slightly lowered, as focused but not aggressive. This body language is not about readiness to fight. It's about acceptance. Tommy Egan has always stood like someone ready to explode. Here, he stands like someone who has already made peace with the outcome. That contrast alone should make fans uneasy. Power rarely repeats visual language unless it wants the audience to connect emotional dots without spelling anything out. Even the silence between movements feels heavy. No music rushes in to guide emotions. No sudden sound breaks the tension. Silence in Power is never accidental. It's often used when the show wants viewers to project their own fear onto the moment. The longer the silence stretches, the more it feels like time slowing down, as if this scene exists outside the normal flow of the episode. That kind of pause usually marks something irreversible. It tells us that whatever choice Tommy is facing, there is no reset button afterward. Small details like wardrobe also add to the unease. Tommy's look in this clip is stripped of flash or dominance. There's nothing bold or attention-grabbing. It feels practical, almost plain. Like someone who is no longer trying to send a message to enemies, Power uses clothing to show mindset. And this version of Tommy looks like a man who isn't planning for tomorrow. He looks like someone closing a chapter. That subtle shift reinforces the idea that what makes these clues so powerful is that none of them scream danger on their own, but together they form a pattern Power fans have learned to fear. When visuals turn quiet, when camera distance increases, when silence replaces chaos, the show is usually preparing for loss. This clip doesn't confirm anything outright, but it doesn't try to distract us either. It calmly lays out the signs and trusts the audience to understand what they mean. And that trust makes the possibility of Tommy's end feel more real than ever. If Tommy is truly on the edge of leaving the board, the biggest question becomes who actually benefits from his absence. Power has never removed a major player without clearing space for someone else to rise. And Season 3 has been quietly setting that stage. Chicago under Tommy has been unstable, violent, and unpredictable, but it has also been controlled by fear. The moment that fear disappears, the entire city becomes a battlefield. This clip feels like the signal that the balance is about to break. When Tommy Egan steps out of the picture, every alliance becomes weak, and every enemy suddenly feels brave enough to move. Throughout Power Book 4, Force, we've seen how characters wait for the right moment to strike. No one challenges Tommy head-on unless they believe he's vulnerable. This clip sends that message without saying a word. If Tommy is gone, Chicago doesn't become safer, it becomes louder. Crews that once stayed hidden would rush to fill the vacuum, turning quiet rivalries into open wars. Power thrives on chaos. And removing Tommy creates the kind of chaos that reshapes an entire series. That's why this scene feels so important. It doesn't just threaten one man, it threatens the structure of the city itself. There's also a darker truth hidden in this setup. Tommy has been the problem and the solution at the same time. As long as he's alive and active, no one else can fully take control. His presence keeps everyone reacting instead of planning. But once he's removed, long-term strategies finally matter. Characters who have been forced to play defense would suddenly have room to build their own empires. That shift would explain why the show has been spending more time developing secondary players this season. Power rarely invests in future leaders unless it plans to remove the current one. Another uncomfortable possibility is that Tommy's exit may not be about his enemies at all. It may be about the system around him realizing that he's no longer useful. Throughout the season, Tommy has been treated less like a king and more like a weapon. People point him at problems and expect destruction, but they don't offer loyalty. In return, this clip reflects that reality. He stands alone because, in the end, he was always meant to stand alone. If the city no longer needs him to create fear, then his role is finished. Power has always been brutal about discarding characters once their purpose is served. What makes this even more tragic is that Tommy understands this better than anyone. The clip feels like a moment of awareness, where he sees the shape of the game without illusions. He knows that if he stays, he becomes the excuse for endless bloodshed. If he leaves, the city tears itself apart anyway. Either way, the outcome is destruction. That realization turns his possible exit into something more than a loss. It becomes a sacrifice, whether he wants it to be or not. Power often frames its biggest departures as necessary evils rather than heroic endings. This is why the idea of Tommy being gone feels believable, not because the show wants shock value, but because the story demands change. Force cannot stay in the same cycle forever. Removing Tommy would force every character to reveal who they really are without him as the shadow over their choices. The clip doesn't confirm his fate, but it clearly asks the audience to imagine a world without him. And once you start imagining that world, it becomes clear that nothing in Chicago would ever be the same again. At this point in the story, the question is no longer whether something happens to Tommy Egan, but what form that ending actually takes. Power has always played with expectations, and Season 3 feels like it is offering 3 paths that all feel equally possible: death, disappearance, or choice. Each option fits the clip in a different way, and that uncertainty is what makes this moment so unsettling. The show isn't pushing us toward one clear answer. Instead, it's forcing us to sit with the idea that any ending for Tommy will hurt, just in different ways. The most obvious possibility is death, and Power has trained its audience to expect it. Tommy has cheated death more times than most characters in the universe, and that history makes a final fall feel earned. The clip's quiet tone, the lack of urgency, and the absence of a clear enemy all line up with how Power often prepares viewers for a fatal outcome. When characters are about to die, the show doesn't always surround them with chaos. Sometimes it gives them stillness, almost as a form of respect. If this is truly the road they're taking, then the clip feels like a last moment of awareness before everything goes dark. Not dramatic, not explosive, just final. But disappearance may be even more dangerous than death. Power loves the idea of ghosts, characters who vanish but never truly leave the story. Tommy faking his death or slipping away would fit his survival instincts perfectly. It would also allow the show to keep his shadow alive over Chicago without his physical presence. The clip supports this theory in subtle ways. There is no visible threat forcing his hand, no immediate danger. That suggests choice rather than defeat. A disappearance would turn Tommy into a legend, a warning whispered on the streets instead of a man walking them. Power has always understood the power of absence, and removing Tommy without killing him could be its boldest move yet. Then there is the most unexpected option of all: Tommy walking away by choice. This would be the hardest ending for fans to accept, but also the most meaningful. Season 3 has shown a man who is finally aware of the cost of his actions. Walking away wouldn't be weakness, it would be control. The clip supports this idea through its calmness. There's no panic, no desperation, just a man standing still, thinking. That stillness feels like someone deciding, not someone losing. In the Power universe, choosing to leave the game is almost unheard of. That's why it would be so powerful. It would mean Tommy breaks the cycle instead of being crushed by it. What makes this section of the story so effective is that the show doesn't rush us toward any answer. It lets the possibilities breathe. Each outcome carries weight, and each one reshapes Power Book 4 Force in a different way. Death ends a chapter forever. Disappearance keeps the legend alive. Walking away changes the meaning of the entire series. The clip works because it supports all 3 without confirming any of them. That balance keeps the audience guessing and emotionally invested. No matter which path the story chooses, one truth is already clear: Tommy cannot continue the way he has been. The clip feels like a turning point, not just for him, but for the show itself. Power doesn't frame moments like this unless something fundamental is about to change, whether we lose Tommy physically or spiritually. The version of him we've followed for years is already slipping away, and that realization makes this moment feel just as painful as any death scene ever could. If this moment truly marks the beginning of the end for Tommy Egan, then the future of Power Book 4 Force changes in ways that go far beyond one character's fate. Force was built around Tommy's energy, his unpredictability, and his refusal to play by anyone else's rules. Removing that force doesn't just create a hole in the story. It forces the show to redefine what it even is Season 3 feels like. It understands that risk and is slowly preparing the audience for a shift that would have been unthinkable in earlier seasons. One of the biggest questions this raises is whether Force can survive without Tommy at its center. Power has replaced, leads before, but never someone this deeply connected to the entire universe. Tommy isn't just a character. He's a bridge between eras, cities, and stories. If he's gone, the show has to decide what kind of story it wants to tell next. Does it become a full ensemble drama where power is shared and constantly challenged? Or does it quietly position a new lead to step into his place? Season 3 has been testing both ideas by giving more screen time and depth to other characters. The show feels like it's checking whether the audience is ready to follow someone else into the chaos. Another possibility is that Tommy's exit is not meant to end Force, but to evolve it. Power has always thrived on reinvention, moving cities, changing power structures, and shifting tone are part of its identity. Removing Tommy could open the door for Force to explore Chicago as a system rather than a battlefield controlled by one man. That kind of shift would allow the show to dig deeper into politics, betrayal, and long-term strategy instead of constant survival. The clip hints at this future by slowing everything down. It feels less like an action beat and more like a turning page. There is also the question of how Tommy's absence would affect the emotional core of the show. Force has often been about isolation, but Tommy gave that isolation a face. Without him, the story risks becoming colder and more fragmented. However, that may be exactly what the writers want, a colder world driven by ambition instead of fear. Would raise the stakes for every character left behind. Season 3 has already shown that loyalty means less and survival means more. Tommy leaving would push that theme to its extreme, turning Chicago into a place